So this is book three of the 52, book four actually, not book three, but this is book four, African American poetry and anthology, edited by Jonah R. Sherman from 1773 to 1927. So it just goes through some African American poets. It's just pretty much a book that has just a collection of poetry and gives you some of the poets behind it. Just a quick description of who they are, what their life is. This book's pretty cool. The design's pretty cool on the front, but um, yeah, this kind of gives a good insight to abolitionists and what they were expressing through poetry. Their thought. There's a lot of deep undertones about Christianity, faith in God, understanding salvation in Christ, and as well as kind of the dichotomy between the races, and the dichotomy between the slave owner and the slave, and then the moral question of how God views slavery. So how could one be a godly man but have slaves or be enslaving another man? So it kind of has these, undertones expressed through poetry, and it's very creative. The way that they use the language um, is very creative. Um, some's from the deep south, so you kind of see that, and then you can kind of see how it's written in such a way to express this message. And yeah, it talks about death and kind of like being content with the situation that one is in. There's poems about that, so it gives a pretty good perspective and understanding, and kind of allows you to kind of see what abolitionists were trying to express and how they kind of dealt with the predicament that they were in, and America during the time from the 1700s to the 1920s. So it was a pretty good book. It's pretty, like I said, it's just a collection of poems, so you're just reading through poems. But yeah, it gives good reference to prominent figures, prominent abolitionists that you can go and research and look at. I think it's a good change of pace for me going within this challenge, because the first two books were very dense literature. One was the will to power, and the other one was management of organizational behavior. So to have this, and then after that, before that was the Secret Teachings of Jesus. So these are a little shorter books. The other ones are bigger books. So I'd say if you're watching this and doing this challenge with me, or if you're trying to read more books in a year and you're trying to increase the amount of books that you read a lot of different books. Well, I have other books that I'm reading, as I'm reading this, obviously. So if you want to read more books, it's kind of like watching TV shows. The more TV shows that you watch, you're just gonna be able to finish more if you just keep doing that. And yes, you can binge TV shows just like you can binge a book. This was done in like a day or so. I was able to read this. So other books can get blocks through if you just sit down and just focus. But but I would say in your reading list, always try to have like different types of books. So if you're gonna read, I guess you could say like textbooks, books about like systems, science books, dense literature, dense scientific literature. That's pretty good, but your brain might get a little fatigued, and you might not really understand what you're looking at. So, to kind of keep yourself from getting burnt out in a general way, you can just switch it up. So, read science, read philosophy, then read like some poetry, then read some, religion, religious texts, then read some, athletic texts, read about nutrition, read about history. So you can kind of just change these types of books. Read books that have, they're more direct on their information, where they're really breaking it down. Then there's books where, they're more so telling a story, or they're just expressing things in different ways, if that kind of makes sense. So there's different ways that you can kind of stay on the challenge and really kind of get your brain working. So this was a good change of pace book. And then as well, if you pick some smaller books to read too, as long as with the bigger books you kind of mix that up, then your brain's going to be craving just to, watch something a little short. Sometimes you can't watch, it's like a movie. You can't watch a 3 hour, like you can't just sit there and watch 3 hour movies. You're just going to get dull. It's just going to become dull. Maybe you can do that. But, sometimes you might crave a shorter movie. So it's the same thing. Like, crave a shorter book. It's nothing wrong reading smaller books that are, a little shorter and sweeter. They can have a lot of information and learn a lot of things. So yeah, African poetry, or African American poetry. This is a great book. I've given this book a 4 out of 10. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's just poetry. So yeah, we'll see you at book 4 or book 5.